questions, please utilize the raise hand feature and we can go ahead and get started. Go ahead, Curtis.
Morning, Bob. Thanks for doing this today. We appreciate it. I guess when you look back, you had a couple of days to digest the season. Now, when you look back, what stands out to you as far as this season?
Well, I think any coach in my position, you take inventory of all the strong moments, the weak moments. You try and analyze. You do a little bit of a study on your own team, and as the off season goes, we'll dive even deeper into that. But obviously the tough part was some of the injuries that we dealt with. And we still came out and had a great start to the season. I thought that coming out of camp. I like the way training camp went. I like the way the start of our season went. Even going into the break, we've talked about we were, 5 games or something like that over 500, and I thought that we were in a good spot. We ran into some injuries second half, and it really hurt us. And not just guys being banged up and nicked up. It was surgeries, as Mario and obviously Carly, Magna, guys like that had major injuries we had to deal with, and I think that hurt us. But there's a lot of things that improved as the season went on. Some were very apparent, and other things are sort of the underlying things that I'm studying right now and looking at what's some of the strengths that we had.
You mentioned the injuries there. A lot of players said that at the break, that's where things turned maybe for this season. Would you agree that coming back from the break, that was a pretty pivotal time for the season for the Sharks?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the heavy part of the schedule, right? And that's, all the travel we had. And, it was almost, that was time to sort of make our hay and stay going in the right direction. There was a lot of times that I would talk to you guys after the game and say, we have 8 guys on the list tonight that aren't playing. And no, that's tough for any team. Our team, we speak to, have our best players be our best players every night, and depth, and we may not be as deep as other teams that are ready to win right now, and so I think injuries hurt us more so than a lot of teams.
Is the number one issue scoring? I mean, is that fair to say that this is a team that needs to find more ways to put the puck in the net?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you look, limiting chances and defensively, I think we're 15th in the league in limiting chances, inner slot chances. If you look at, our analytics, we're a good team in the neutral zone. We deny a lot of entries, controlled entries. We're a shot blocking team. I think we're second in the league in blocking shots. When we did have leads, I think we were 20-0-4 leading after second period. I think there's only 2 other teams in the league that have that record. So those are some good things, and it shows you that we're in a lot of games. We had 23 games, I believe, where we had to pull our goalie and trying to find that one goal that we need. So that skews the numbers a little bit, but I think. Your answer to your question is we're about 40 goals short of being a playoff team. If you just look at in the league, I think the last team that got into the playoffs with the least amount of offense, I believe, was Dallas, and I think we're about behind them. So, and you don't want to keep bringing up the name, but obviously, going into the season, losing your leading goal scorer or point, offensive player, that hurt us. And I think, everybody knows the story and the reasons and all those things. But at the end of the day, yeah, I mean, I'd like Tommy's line with Timo and Barbie. I thought Couch's line, Couch had a lot of guys coming in. It was a bit of a revolving door on that line with, a Rudy or a Gregor or a Darlene. At the end of the year was Benito and Neitz. I mean, to get some to steady that line out, I think is the key moving forward.
Josh? Hey, Bob, just how different is it heading into an offseason right now, or not knowing sort of the direction of the organization with GM and all of that? How do you approach the beginning of this offseason until that is resolved?
There's only certain things obviously under in my control, and I think that's what I worry about. I think I think it's been very transparent from the management side and ownership side what the process is and what they're dealing with here over the next short while. Of course, I would think that from my point of view, for my staff, myself, for my players, I think everybody would love to have to find out sooner or later and have that stability. I think, Doug being gone all year, and Joe doing, I thought, which was a fantastic job, a great job of, it was just so many things happening during the year. And Joe was very open and honest with us through the whole process and still is. And I think that, at some point when they make a decision, I think it's better for obviously everybody.
And you guys had a ton of rookies obviously play this year. Where do you need to see some of those guys sort of maybe make that next step to be even bigger contributors next season?
Well, some of the guys the first year guys, being able to have a good off season of training and conditioning and coming back bigger and stronger. That's number one for a lot of these guys. This experience and this opportunity they had this year of playing, large chunks of NHL games in the schedule, I think is going to help them. I think that the one thing is, and this was the message that was sent, I guess, at the end of the year is don't come back and assume that you have a job, or just because you played the last 30 games that you're penciled in all next year. I don't think that's the case. I think these guys are all going to have to earn their jobs at training camp. And they're going to have to come back and compete. I'm sure that, this team will be a better team come September. With that is, some new faces or what happens in the offseason. But obviously we need to see, them elevate their game. I look at guys like Gregor and Reedy and Sasha Weatherby, who played a lot for us, Merkley, put Balsers in that conversation, and Malash, you have Borlo, Eklund, all these guys. There's some great progress being made, and I think this organization is deeper than it's ever been with young talent. But with that comes competition, and I think that's the key. Come back to camp is earning jobs.
Yeah, Bob, you reference analytics quite a bit throughout the season. I'm just curious, in terms of a new GM, are you hoping that's something that they put at a premium? Does that jive with where your kind of paradigm is for the sport?
I think the game itself is turned that way, and we don't beat the analytics up. First, I've talked about this before. It's the eye test first, and that tells the story. Then you dip into the analytics and you see if they match up and where you're off. And a lot of times where it's pretty close. So, but there's certain things I look for after a game that sort of gives me the meter of how we're playing. And, I think nowadays anybody from management or coaching, that's a tool that it's much needed that we all use. And so I assume that whoever is obviously going to be the GM, that'll be all part of it. And I think that every NHL team has a department of people working in that now.
Yeah, Bob. I guess while we're on that subject, there's let's just say with Brent Burns, the public analytic information that's available doesn't necessarily quote unquote like the season that he had. But you've obviously been said a lot of the good things about what he did. Just, is there anything in the private stuff that you guys have that says kind of differently than the public stuff, or just what?
I think if you dive deep into it, obviously, no one's played more minutes at his age. So I think that's number one, is the situations he plays in. He plays against top lines every night. So, with our team, we played a lot in our end at times, and, sometimes that skews things. I think, he's still one of the leaders on our team generating offense. That's forwards and defensemen included. He's still one of the guys that's got the most defensive kills, in the small areas in the defensive zone. I think he's top 12 or 13 scoring defenseman in the league. He's providing that offense, running the power play. So there's a ton of good things about Burnsy's game. And I just think that, sometimes, I know that, sometimes people don't give him enough credit for a lot of the little things that he provides and what he means to this team in the dressing room and how he sets examples for young players. So obviously I thought he's had a good season, a really good season.
And yesterday, Eric mentioned sort of when we were asking about scoring more goals and finding more offense. I think he mentioned just the idea of the team is going to have to play more aggressively, and it's kind of regardless of whatever system they're in. Just I'm just wondering, for your perspective, if there are additions to the team and you feel like you have a more talented team next year, will there be system changes to maybe reflect that, I guess?
Yeah, system changes. I think, we try from we work on it every day. We through video, through practices. We watch what the best teams are doing. If there's something missing from our game that other teams do. So that's a study that we're constantly in. I don't think there's, a certain amount of that comes down to personnel. But I've heard that, we're a dump and chase team. We're not a dump and chase team. No one's ever said dump the puck. If you got an outnumbered rush, or if you got a situation where you get creative, we chip and dump pucks when need be. And I think if you look at the best teams in the league, I think you'll find usually that the best teams in the league are the best forechecking teams. The teams that manage the puck the best. People said that about the St. Louis Blues a few years ago. They led the league in dump-ins, they led the league in forecheck, and they won the Stanley Cup. So there's different ways to play with your personnel. We went to the 1-1-3, and I think that really helped us. Our D zone stuff is great. I think that we've done a really good job at limiting chances there. But yeah, we need to create more offense. And I think that's, for me, it's holding on to more pucks. It's moving your feet. It's more shot volume. It's getting your D involved in the offense, in the offensive zone. It's your D joining rushes. We want to play fast. We want to play on our toes. And we want to play aggressive. With that, I think comes more puck possession, and that's sometimes that's not a system. It's more of it's a will. It's it's a skill. Being able to hold on to pucks and have a little more poise in the offense.
Last one for me. You mentioned you mentioned Evander earlier. Now that this is over and you can look back at it, like it seemed like two of the big themes from the season were that the locker room was tighter together and closer, and then also there weren't enough goals. I'm just wondering how much you think that he's connected to both of those things, and if not having him was a net positive or neutral.
I think, do we miss his offense? Of course. But there is a vision and a focus of this group moving forward. And it's number one, you got to win the game in the locker room before you win it on the ice. And I think that we have a strong locker room. I think we have guys that really care for one another, that play hard for one another, and that want to take that next step as a group. So, to assess the whole thing, whether it's a positive or negative, I think we didn't go into this with our eyes shut and, thinking that we weren't going to, lose some skill in offense, but also at what cost. And I think that at the end of the day, it was time for both sides to part. And, I think he's probably in a better situation, and I think we are too.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah.
Hey, Bob, thanks for doing this. Are you back home now?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. So going back to sort of you mentioned the holding on to pucks more. That's one thing that at least analytically, offensive zone possession time was something that you guys struggled with at even strength. How do you get better at that? I know that you're not looking to get from 32nd to first, but you want to be in the 20s or average at it. Is it personnel? Is there things that, or a little bit of both, personnel or things that the players can do a little better?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, we used to, a few years back, we used to be a team, when we had Jumbo and we had Pav, and you guys remember, we used to be a team that rimmed a lot of pucks out in the offensive zone up to our point man. And it was a low to high situation where we get people in front of the net, and it was Pavelski tipping, or if it was Jumbo in the corner, instead of trying to move his feet and get out of there, he'd sling it all the way around and rim it up to the D. And that works. But to be consistent, we've changed that a little bit because we want to be a quick strike team underneath the top of the circles. And I think we've done a better job of that. Now with that comes, you got to be able to cycle. You got to be able to hold on to pucks. You got to have your D involved. And I just didn't think we had enough situations, or, sometimes it's personnel, like I said, but situations where you're working in a almost a 5-man motion in the offensive zone. And with that, one of the teams that comes to mind, obviously Tampa Bay, Nashville does it well, that you really, you got D on their toes, keeping pucks alive. You got forwards holding onto the pucks, using that back of the net, resetting it, quick striking to the slot. That's the kind of team we want to be. And that's what we work on every day. I design drills around that every day in practice, trying to be a team that can play below the tops of the circles. And, that'll come over time. And I think it's, you got young guys that have to learn how to protect pucks. And we had a ton of those guys in our lineup, as we've talked about all year. That's a skill and that's an art that comes with experience. And then I think, getting faster as a team. I think, you look at our team from top to bottom, especially our forwards, and team speed is important nowadays. And I think that, in my opinion, if you're asking me what we can do better, we need to get faster, and hold on to more pucks, and that'll help with our possession.
Is that I guess if you were to drill down on one sort of under the cover thing that you want to improve on offense, is that more speed, or is that better puck possession, or I guess maybe both go hand in hand in your mind?
Yeah, I think we are who we are. And I think that, Tommy Hurdle's he's not the fastest guy in the world, but he's probably our best player at, him and Timo holding on to pucks and protecting pucks down low and being able to have that possession. If you start looking down our lineup, I thought that, our third line for a while, the veteran line of Benino, Nieto, and Cogs, are guys that are more defensive minded guys that maybe, didn't spend enough time in the offensive zone. Our fourth line was always seemed to be, a combination of a lot of young players up and down, guys filling slots, whether it was Weatherby or Reedy or, Gadge or Wheeler. That was sort of a little bit of a rotating line for us throughout the year. And I've already talked about Couture's line. Couture is strong at protecting pucks down low and having possession. But I think at the end of the day, I think when you build your team out, I think a little more speed will help, and hopefully the experience these young guys had. But it's moving your feet and it's holding on to pucks and doing it with speed. You gotta be a tough team to defend against. And that's an area that we were going to focus on. And that, for me, when I build out the plan or build out systems, that's top of mind.
And I assume when you talk about speed too, it's not just skating, but it's also playing fast too.
Playing fast. Yeah. And you can go in and get the puck on the forecheck, and we do a decent job of that. But once you hit that puck, you got to be able to escape out of the pressure. And that's about playing fast, and that's about making quick decisions. And almost, you see the best teams do it when they get in, they forecheck, they get the puck, they're finding a way to bring that thing to the net or to the slot right away. And that's the kind of identity we want to have, and that we'll work at, and we are working at. And that's probably the most important thing. If I can analyze everything, and I have already, and I've got, I'm doing my deep dive into all the analytics. It's that's the next step for us as a team. We've got a lot of the other things covered, but we have to get better at scoring goals, and that's going to be important.
And I guess one young player, I don't want to over focus on him because he's so young, Thomas Sportolo, and he just made his NHL debut. But he came into a pretty big role when he made his NHL debut as essentially a third line center. But that's such a critical role for a winning team, that 3C role. And so, what does he got to do to potentially fill that role next year, or is that maybe just a big job for a young player? It's tough to basically give that guy that job.
Well, it's a very big job, and it's a lot of responsibility. And I think that he did a great job coming in after his college career was over. And I thought that he made an impact in our lineup right away. He's talk about a guy with some speed that can hold on to pucks and his skill level. You see that, and that's for a guy that's fresh to the league, that's pretty impressive that he can do that. And that's what we're sort of talking about. That next step, is it Eklund that comes in? We saw him hold on to pucks, and he's playing fast. Bordelot plays fast. So if those guys come in and make the team, that's an automatic upgrade, right? But with Boards, the first thing I talked to him at the end of the season is making sure, and I know he's going to go, maybe play at the World Juniors or World Championships or whatever he's doing. I think that it's important for him to get in the weight room and get bigger and stronger. Number one. Same with Eklund. It's big summers for these guys for building up on their bodies. But again, Bordelot's got to come back, and nothing's going to be given. He's got to make the team. He's got to go through camp. He's got to have a good camp. He's got to have a good preseason. And again, what's his competition look like? I think that's a more of a question for management, and what's going to happen and what they're looking to do this summer. But I expect that we're going to improve our team over the off season. So these guys coming back to camp, it's you got to earn your job.
And another player I'm curious about is Erik Karlsson. Obviously, early in the season, you got a very impactful Erik Karlsson, but maybe when he came back, and obviously he missed the end of the season, maybe not quite the same guy as early in the season. Just so how important is that to this team to get that Erik Karlsson that you had before his forearm surgery?
Yeah, it's that was tip the scales pretty hard on us. I think that my opinion, from the time I've been there anyway, I thought that was the best hockey we've seen Carly play. He was engaged. He was aggressive. He was, jumping up in the play, running the power play. He was just doing a little bit of everything. And, I think after that surgery, coming back and having all that time off, and then the key for him, number one, is to try and, he hasn't in the last 3 or 4 seasons hasn't been able to get through the 82 game schedule. That's going to be important to have his health and him being physically ready and hopefully injury free. He hasn't had a lot of luck with that in the past few years. But yeah, if he can regain that form he had before the forearm surgery, and I know he will, he's an elite player. I think that this team obviously goes as Erik goes, and as one of the experienced leaders and veterans, I think that's obviously huge for us, for him to be able to be healthy and be able to contribute like he was doing that before the arm surgery.
And curious also too, you mentioned steadying out the Logan Couture line is sort of a big key for next year. What are sort of the elements that you think could mix well with Logan, just like how Timo and Tommy have seemed to mesh with Barabanov? So what might you be looking for in terms of qualities, be it internally or from the outside, qualities from a player that would mix well with Logan?
Well, I think he needs some speed on his wings. I do. I think that Logan plays in so many hard situations against the other team's best lines, and we experimented with Timo there at the beginning of the year too, and that worked. And then Tommy's line was off, so we threw Timo up there, and then they caught fire, and Timo caught fire. So for Cooch, playing against top line, someone that has great hockey sense and someone that has speed, and whether that's an Eklund coming in or, you go outside the organization to find that. Again, I think that's one of the keys for us to move forward and expect offense, obviously, out of Cooch's line. Some nights, as we saw, if Tommy or Timo were off, we had tough chances of winning those games and getting points in those games. So, we shouldn't have to rely on that one line to score every night. We need some depth underneath that offensive depth.
And I think the last one for me for now, Bob. Thanks for everything this year. Is just in terms of what Joe has told you about sort of your job next year, is it, I guess, from I'm hearing from you that that you won't know necessarily about your job and your coaching staff's job until you talk to the new GM, basically, whenever that is. Like, that's sort of in that person's hands, maybe.
We haven't jumped into that. I know the season just being done and exit meetings and everything else, we haven't got that far into a conversation. But I don't know the process, the time length on finding a new GM. I guess Joe could probably talk more to that than that's sort of out of my hands. But yeah, I would say this, that obviously sooner than later we'll have to know, kind of thing, so we can move forward. And whether that's a new GM or whether that's Joe or management or ownership making those decisions, you'd have to ask him.
Okay. I guess to follow up on that, is there a sort of a date that makes sense, in terms of just for preparing for the season, like when is it ideal to know something like that for your preparation and your coaching staff's preparation?
Tomorrow. No, I'm kidding. No, no, again, it's been just such a busy weekend for everybody that, we haven't even really crossed that bridge, and there's no date, there's no ultimatums or anything like that. We work together. We've been very open and transparent with each other of where we're at and where we want to get to. And, so I'll leave that question up to Joe to answer. But yeah, I've said this before. I thought that, my staff and myself have put a lot of time in with this group, and, we want to be a part of it moving forward. I've said there's light at the end of the tunnel here for sure. And I think that, the guys play hard for us, and they bought into the system, they bought into the culture we've created and the environment, and they all want to improve, obviously. And we're a hard working team is one of the things that we talked about, the non-negotiables, that we're going to be a tough team to play against. And we know where our weaknesses are and where we got to improve, but it's a good group to work with, and I hope I'm back.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks.
Curtis.
Paul, can you say when you might have a longer sort of call or meeting with Joe or anyone else in management coming? Is there anything coming up? Or
yes, we're gonna talk. I don't have any date circled on the calendar or anything, and again, Joe's been the busiest man in hockey here the last few weeks. So yeah, I think we'll probably sit down and have a chat here, I'd say the near future, but there's been nothing obviously planned. That's probably a better question for Joe.
Okay. We were talking to Mark Edward Vlasic on Friday there, and he didn't really hide the fact that he wanted to play more minutes. How does he get to being go from being a second or a third pair guy up into the top four again? What does his game have? What does he have to do in his game to sort of get back to that level?
Well, in my personal opinion, I think that Pick's game got better as the season went on. I thought his second half was much better than his first half. And what I would like to see him, and he's had slow starts for the last 2 years. So I think, coming into camp, having a better training camp and not waiting the 2-3 months to his game to come around. I think that's important from him personally. His minutes increases, his game got better, and there's not a coach out there that doesn't want to play players when they're at the top of the game and they can help your team every night. And of course, you're going to load those minutes up on guys like that. So, if Pickles comes back and, plays the same way he finished, and he starts the same way he finished, then there won't be any issues. I think, but there's no set, like, who's going to be in the top four. This, how many minutes guys are going to get. You get what you earn and what you deserve. And I've always been like that. I've always been very honest and open and transparent about that up front with the players. There's not a coach in the world that doesn't want to play their players when they're playing their best. So that for me is a little bit of self-reflection, and and hopefully that, like I said, he starts how he finished.
Management obviously still has to decide what to do with their goaltending as well. But is it nice from your perspective that you're going to have two experienced players coming back and being your net miners last year, as opposed to maybe last season where maybe you didn't quite know what was going to happen in the off season?
Yeah, it's definitely a more of a comforting feeling. I think that we've never had a situation where we've had three goalies. So this is going to be interesting, but all our metrics are up in the goaltending department. I think some of that has to do with our team play, and we're a pretty detailed team defensively within our systems. But there was a time there when we, obviously all of them were hurt, and we called up Sawchenko. And we've tried a couple options there, and I think that hurt us a little bit, to be honest. And the timing of the injuries on our goaltending. But you look at it, yeah, and all three guys can play. All three guys are NHL goalies, and so whatever those decisions are, obviously, again, that's not really a decision I make, but it's nice to have that option and that depth in goaltending. We haven't had that in quite a while, so good problem, I guess.
All right, thank you, Bob. Appreciate it.
Anything else here before we wrap? Okay, thanks everyone. Appreciate your time joining here. We'll have interim general manager Joe Will available at 12:30. We'll have audio of the call available on Zoom, but that's it for Bob today. Thanks everyone.
Thanks, guys. Have a great season, off season.
Thank you, Bob. You